In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in Black and White emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White. I'm your host, Charles King. Tonight on America in Black and White, we shine a light on a man whose life's work sits at the intersection of justice, protection, mentorship, and community uplift. In a world where our young people face dangers that many adults can barely imagine, there are individuals who choose to stand in that gap, not for recognition, not for applause, but because their purpose demands it. Our guest this evening, Kirenski Wilkerson, is one of those rare leaders, a victim advocate specialist with the Georgia Department of Juvenile Justice. He brings compassion, clarity, and courage to some of the most difficult cases involving our youth, including victims of trafficking, exploitation, and violence. His journey from Perry, Georgia to statewide leadership is a testament to what happens when service becomes a calling and community becomes a compass. From the emerging 100 of Atlanta to the board of directors of Revved Up Kids, from mentoring college students to standing beside young survivors, from shaping policy to shaping lives. Kirenski embodies what it means to lead with heart, humility, and hope. And when he speaks about the people who shaped him, his parents, his grandmother, his siblings, he reminds us that Black history isn't just found in textbooks. It lives in our homes, our families, our elders, and the everyday heroes who pour into us long before the world knows our names. Tonight, we honor his work, his story, and his unwavering commitment to protecting the next generation. Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring Mr. Kirenski Wilkerson to the show. Hello, sir.
Hey, thank you so much, Mr. King.
Well, it's nice to have you here. I'm glad that we finally got a chance to do the show.
Yes.
So,
Thank you.
Is there anything you'd like to say to the audience before we dive into the show?
Just want to thank everybody for joining in. I definitely have been showcasing it, making sure I have people to join in. So we should have a good number of people that are joining in live to be able to watch this episode tonight.
Well, that's a great thing, and I'm really happy that you're here because this is every show is important, but your show has got its own separate set aside.
Okay.
So I would like to start where I would like for people to get the opportunity to learn a little bit more about who Kirenski was before you got to be who you are today.
Okay.
So can you tell us, growing up in Perry, Georgia, what values shaped you most as a young man?
I would say so. Originally, I went to school and everything in Perry. I'm originally from a small town called Overthorpe, Georgia. It's probably about like 15, 20 minutes away from Perry. So being in those areas, which we consider like middle Georgia, I would say for me, just growing up in a small country town, it shaped me to who I am. Just being in a country area and everything, everybody knew everybody. So everybody was like family. Our neighbors, everything, it was just family. So in my community, I grew up where some of my family, we actually kind of live near each other. So like I spoke about, you spoke about my grandmother, my parents' house, my aunts, my great uncles and everything. Like we were all kind of near in the same area. So anytime that, anything family related, we was all right there as a community. And like I said, that plays a big part of me just coming from a great family. I have family that's also in Philly and North Carolina as well too. So just being here in the South, just having that close knit family and also friends of our family in our community just really shaped me who I am today. Just seeing different people that I kind of grew up around and kind of watched as I grew up, as I grew older and saw different people who actually was like influencing in our community that I looked up to as well too. So that just really like shaped me to who I am, all the way through from elementary, middle school, high school, college, and then so on to now at the age of 33.
So tell us, how does the culture shock? How did that get to you coming from a small rural area like Middle to South Georgia to Metro Atlanta?
So honestly, it really didn't bother me at all. I used to tell people I'm from the country, but I really had like a city boy mentality in me. So coming to Atlanta, I came here for school and everything. I also came here to do some work with doing some TV stuff for acting and doing some modeling things as well too. And so just being here, I just felt like it was still a part of home for me because I'm, of course, not too far from home. So if I need to go back home and kind of get away from the fast pace, I could go back home down south and just be around trees and grass and everything and, get a reset. And then I could always come back to Atlanta to, the fast paced environment. So the culture shock for me, I also went to Georgia Southern at one point in my time. So even going there, just leaving Pierre and going out to another place that's kind of really country as well too. It was still felt like home to me. So when I got to the opportunity where it's time for me to make my transition to Atlanta, it really was just an easy transition. Like I didn't have any, issues. Like, oh, I'm kind of nervous being in a major city or something like that. Now, if I would have went to like New York or something like that, then yeah, I probably would have had a little culture shock or something like that. So Atlanta was just it's still considered home for me as well.
What do you remember most vividly about your childhood community?
I would say by my child, it's funny. What I remember, growing up in a small town, yard sales used to be such a big thing in a country town. So I remember just going to different yard sales with my grandmother and all that when I was a child. Like I said, just always going to different people's houses. Just always going to different people in our community, different events and everything that kind of brought the community together. Like I said, it was very small community. So anytime we would have like festivals or anything, like you would see everybody would come out to these festivals because pretty much that's all we had to do in those community. Coming to like going to like Macon, Georgia, or coming to Atlanta was like a big deal for us because, again, we in a smaller town, smaller cities and everything. So coming up to a major city was just like, it was everything. And I just remember as a child, my grandmother always used to have me coming to Atlanta with her. And so that used to kind of give me that, kind of instill it into me what a major city is like before I even moved to Atlanta once I became an adult.
Okay. How did your parents influence your understanding of service and leadership?
I would say both my parents, my mom, they always just growing up. Of course, they were being the leaders in our household growing up. And so just seeing, both my mom and my dad going off to work and everything, and even just being a service into what they do in the community, just, by working in the community and the community that we live in. I would say my mom just always instilled with me just having that leadership. I would say go all the way back to like elementary, middle school. My mom always say that, you're going to be a leader one day. And, she used to kind of say that I remind her so much of my uncle, which is like a businessman. And she was like, you're going to be just like your uncle, such a businessman. So, there's going to be like challenges that you're going to face as you get older because it's so many people see so much in you that at the time, I didn't see in myself. And so those qualities of leadership and service and everything, it took a while before I started realizing like, hey, these things that my mom shared with me growing up as she was raising me. These are things that now I see. I see what people saw in me that I didn't see in me at a young age. But I would definitely be a leader, and so here I am.
Look, we got our first question here in the chat for you. I'm going to put it
Okay.
on the screen. It's from
Okay.
David Glover. He says, "Does the country or family values seem different from those who grew up in a major city?"
The country. I would say honestly. I would say no. Honestly, I would feel like it's the same. It's all about, even if you grew up in a major city or if you grew up in a country area, it's all about the community that you live in. Like right now, like I've lived in like the city of Atlanta, and then now I'm in like the outskirts of like the Decatur area, and even just being here, it's still sort of like a community. Although yes, it's in a major city around a major city area, it's still a sense of community. Like I said, like Decatur is like a closer area to, like, I think I want to say like 15-20 minutes from the city of Atlanta. But this area definitely, it makes me feel home as well too. Even just my neighbors here where I live at, like we're, have became very family friend oriented. I could go outside and like I said, a neighbor, we speak and everything. So stuff like that, reminds me at home, because our neighbors at home, you will always, even if you just go to the mailbox at home, you're gonna like see your neighbor. If you go to like a local grocery store or something, you're gonna run into somebody. And I actually just said the other day, like I was like, okay, maybe I've been in Atlanta too long, because now I can like run into different stores and everything, and I could just run into people. So I'm like, now that just reminds me so much of being back home. So I definitely feel like it's really no different being in a major city compared to a small country town.
What lessons did your grandmother instill in you that still guide you today?
Oh, okay, it's a lot. Let's see. So my grandmother, lessons that she instilled with me, pretty much my grandmother always just shared with people that she literally had raised me since I was 2 years old. I had my parents, but I was my grandmother and my granddad baby pretty much. And so my grandmother instilled so much in me to the point it's like different lessons on how to maneuver in life, different things that I may, face in life and everything. She also always have told me, my grandmother pretty much has always been that type of person where she could go anywhere and she would know any and everybody. And those type of lessons stuck with me, because you never know wherever you at, you never know who you may run into or who actually may be watching you and everything. So those lessons kind of stuck with me, because it's like anytime I'm out somewhere, I will remember my grandmother saying like, hey, you never know, speak to people going to reach out to you and everything. And that's how you build your connection. So if I'm anywhere I go, like I'm making sure I build that connection. I'm like, my grandmother, she always made sure anywhere she went, she, spoke highly of people, X, Y, and Z, and then that's how people was able to reach out her if they was in time of need. And so my grandmother, anything she could do, she always did to anybody. And there's like cooking, anything like that. So for me, that stuck with me, because I try to make sure whenever I'm meeting people, or even just people in my circle and everything, I try to give my all to people and do right by people. And that's something my grandma always say, just always do right by people. You never want to do anything wrong to anybody, because you never know what a person may, do to you and do to you. So that was one lesson. And then just being who you are as an individual, your legacy. My grandmother worked in the education systems. Like she always worked with kids. So she had a passion working with kids. And honestly, she used to have me when she worked at the middle school and everything. And she would have me go to school, go to the school with her while she was working and everything. And I would sit in the classroom. So from that, I just knew that I always want to work with kids, and have a passion for kids, because I saw the passion that my grandmother had for kids. So that lesson just kind of stuck with me as well too. The kids, this our generation, so whatever we can do to pour into our kids, she did that. And she would bring them home and everything, and I used to be like, why do your kids coming to the house with us and all that? But that was her way of showing, because she just had that passion for kids. So that was one lesson that just really stuck with me, just always showing up, because you never know the legacy that you and the impact that you're making on people just by doing just gesture that she did, just helping raise them whatever she can. So that's something I always do, is just trying to make sure that I stick to my passion, and I realize that, you know, there's people that's going to look up to you no matter how old or young you are. There's people going to look up to you.
So, how have your siblings shaped your sense of responsibility and purpose?
So my siblings, and I will share with you. I know I spoke to you prior to this. So I lost my younger siblings some years ago. So as I got older, that was something that always like stuck with me. That I wanted to, you know, kind of live in a legacy because of them, because they was like my younger generation that would have been following behind my footsteps. And so, you know, anything that I wanted to do in life, I always kind of mirror based off of them, because, you know, even just going through school, going out to college and everything, because I know that you know, at one point, if they would have still been here, they would be also following those footsteps, knowing that they have a big brother they could kind of follow behind, they could lean on, get advice from, and everything. So as I got older, that's something that I just always, you know, want to make sure, you know, I do everything I can within their name, and also, you know, pay my respect to them, to like, even though they, you know, higher up and everything, but they do are looking down. They are my guardian angel to actually do what I need to do in life, and know that I always have them watching me and actually rooting for me from afar. And so it's just anything that I do, like I said, I just always kind of think about them and know, hey, if they were still here, they would be so proud to call and say that they have a big brother that actually doing certain things in life, and that once they got to a certain age, you know, they're actually following the footsteps in it as well too, and to continue making our family proud.
Well, I'll tell you this, I'm sure that they're very, very proud. And I can
Yes.
tell you that I'm very proud of you and the work that you do, because your work is very impactful, and it shows in that passion that you have for helping people.
Thank you. Thank you.
When you look back at Perry High School, what
Yes.
experiences prepared you for your career?
I would say my experiences having the support staff that I had at Para High School, all my teachers, the office staff and everything. I think I remember coming in as a freshman. My thing is always to make sure I built those relationships with the staff at Para High School. Because I knew that once I graduate, I could always go back to certain staff members and actually get help for, get advice. They become mentors for me as I, leave transition from high school into college life until my young adult years. So I would say all the experience that I kind of experienced at Parrott High School, that was actually good. I really didn't have any bad experiences going through high school. I was ready for high school. I wasn't nervous about going to high school. We always hear like, oh, high school is going to be so different. The only thing I just remember, like, it was just fast paced, coming out of class and you got 1,000 kids like trying to get to class and everything, and between each bells and everything. So those type of things prepared me to, of course, once I get in the real world, because the real world going to be fast paced, and making sure that I'm always standing up with my grades, following up on different things, assignments and everything. And like I said, and just having those conversations with teachers and staff who actually have been in our position as high school students. So I still, to this day, I have different staff, different teachers that I'm in contact with, mainly via Facebook. I was so excited when some teacher was like, when y'all turn 18, that's when we'll become friends on Facebook. And so that's when it happened. We became friends on Facebook at 18. So I was just excited to see, because I knew that this is going to give me the platform for all those different staff members, different teachers and everything. They can actually see the things that they instilled with me, the experiences that they taught us. They could see me pretty much carry out those experiences and those lessons that they taught us as being our teachers and role models and in school and everything, as I went out to college and again, as I became an adult.
If you had one thing to say to younger Kirenski, what would you tell him?
I would say, I don't know, they kind of make me a little emotional, but I would say younger Kirenski, just to never look at the success of others. And that's something my younger self, I used to look at all the time. I used to kind of look at, I remember my peers and everything, or if they made a higher grade than me, or if they got, into certain programs that I probably wasn't able to get into or something like that, or they had an opportunity that I wasn't able to get the opportunity. That's something as a younger self, I used to kind of beat myself down about. And so I was always kind of just looking at others and what they're doing compared to what I wasn't doing. And so growing up, that's something I used to challenge with a lot.
Was there a defining moment when you realized you wanted to work with youth?
Yeah, so like I said, again, going back to my grandmother, working around youth in a middle school setting, having that experience, and then also just like I said, even with my siblings, losing my siblings at the time, I knew that that I felt like me going through counseling at that time, dealing with my siblings. I knew that I wanted to eventually become a counselor one day, because I feel like that would be my way of kind of giving back, because if the counseling that I needed at that time really helped me during that time. So I felt like, me having to have my experiences and everything, like we all have life testimonies, and, believe it or not, we all have traumas that we have faced in life, if we share it or not. And so that was my way, knowing that once I go become a counselor, I can be able to relate with the youth that I serve, because I could be able to share some of my life stories, some of my life challenges and everything that I've experienced and trauma that I've experienced. And maybe that, it would help them kind of look at certain things and how they can be able to, really speak on some things. Because I know as a child, I didn't really like speak about certain things that I went through. It didn't take until I became like a much older, teenager or younger adult till I really start understanding and really realizing certain things that I experienced as a childhood and the trauma that I experienced. And then I'm able to actually talk it about. So, and I noticed working with juvenile kids, it's challenging to get them to really share. It's hard to really talk to a child. And so I just remember going into my office and dealing with some of my first students at that time, and I'm like, okay, Kirenski, how are you going to engage with the youth and actually for them to hear you out, and they can understand you and you can understand them. And so I just knew, I was okay, you got to go with the same approach that was approached to you when you was in their in their shoes. Yes, I didn't commit crimes and everything with the youth that I deal with, but also the youth that I also did in community, that I was mentors with as well. I wanted to make sure that everything was relatable. So just showing certain stories and everything and being open and candid about those stories really made an impact into my role as being a counselor and being just having a heart and passion to work with kids.
So Mr. Glover must be all up in my questions here. He's getting ahead, but I'm gonna his next question is here. I'm gonna put it on the screen for you.
Okay.
He says, what do you find is the prevailing struggle in our society with the social justice system and our communities?
I would say the struggle, there's so much that really kind of goes into that with the social justice, of course. Like I said, I'm going to speak on the juvenile part of it. A lot of our in the justice system, a lot of our kids that get into the system are pretty much lost. They don't really have a lot of support system. And that's something, that I see on a daily basis and everything, just even talking to certain kids and everything, is like they don't have that support system. And then, of course, sometimes kids will actually run away from certain issues that they're currently dealing with within their community, within their homes and everything. And so that's why I would feel like, and this may be another question later on down the line, but even just having that mental space, being instilled into those community, into those, into the justice system, because, mental health can go so many different ways. And kids, again, they don't know how to deal with certain things at such young age. And so, sometimes that question where you ask, well, what I would tell my younger self, you got to think about kids at that time. What are they telling themselves at that particular time? They just think, okay, I just got to deal with it. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. But also they're not realizing that, it's a lot of things that they could actually work towards, and actually your support system that could actually come to them, that would be like accessible for them to actually help them. And I feel like that would be the challenge, is just knowing that we don't have, it's the lack of support system within the social justice system surrounding the mental space of kids that, growing up in the system, or even just not in the system, but you just have kids that just really need regular mentoring. They may come from a home where it's a single parent home, that may not have a father, may not have a mother or something, or vice versa. Just not having that lack of support, of family support, because that, I feel like that's the foundation. Having that family support system is the foundation that you have to have. So if you don't have that family foundation, that's one of the biggest challenges in the social justice, that I see that we're facing.
So, how did your upbringing prepare you for the emotional weight of advocacy work?
So I would say again, just speaking of some things that I experienced that I that's definitely with trauma. Of course, again, losing my siblings. That I would say it helped me prepare to be able to deal with certain situations as I got older. That was a traumatic experience. And I would share with my siblings, my family. We lost my siblings through a house fire, and so kind of going through that moment at that time was, it was challenging. Although I was younger, but it was still a challenge, because for me, I felt that was something that was very big for my family at that time. And like I stated earlier, I'm from a very small town, so everybody knew everybody. Our neighbors was like our aunts and uncles, cousins, and everything. So having that was played such a very impact role onto me as I got older, and knowing that, I'm also going to experience different kids as I get older who also have experienced certain things like this. And they may have lost their siblings, or they may have lost other, family members in their life, that actually have had caused them to have different traumatic experiences, where they may act out and do certain things because of these type of experiences. So I felt like as I went through middle school, high school, and everything, it was sometimes it was challenging, because it's like, and I could kind of go back certain days where I remember like just being in classes and everything, and I would just have breakdown and everything, and not realizing at that time I was so, very traumatized by what I had experienced, with my siblings. And yes, I had counseling and everything, but these type of things, I knew that once I got older, and once I really started studying, going through college, and really studying the whole background of counseling and psychology aspect of our mental space and everything, I knew that, when I look back, I'm like, okay, this is why I experienced this. This is why I kind of dealt with certain things like this, because it was like trauma that I faced as a childhood that I really never really healed from. And so that's, as I got older, like that's my way of knowing how to really deal with youth, is like we have to kind of work on your healing in order to move forward, to really get to on that path and get on that right track. You have to like focus on the healing part, because we all have to heal for certain things. And sometimes our journey in healing may not happen, it never happened overnight. It may take years. And so that's something I always just share with youth, is like we're all going to still be working on our healing journey, but we just have to do what we can do to put things in place to keep going.
I'll still tell you, I'm, your resilience shows. And, I got to tell you, I've never experienced what you have experienced, but I got to tell you that, I'm happy that you have been able to withstand and move forward and become the person that you are today, because people like you are needed in our communities. And I got to say, once again, I'm really, really proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
What does family legacy mean to you in the context of Black history?
So family legacy, I would say, to me, and I will speak on my family. I have a lot of influential family members that I have always looked up to since, since I was a child. And so having different family members have done things in our community, owning certain businesses and everything in our community, things like that really speaks volume to me, because that's shaping a legacy for them once, they get older and transition everything, and these type of things, still, will linger around. And so for me, that's something I kind of model behind certain figures in my family, based on certain things that they have done within our community, such as just being involved in the community, having certain leadership roles in our communities and everything, and even just some of their jobs and everything, having leadership roles in their jobs. So those type of things for me, as I continue to get older, those some certain things I kind of want to follow behind in order, creating that legacy, not only for my last name, but also just for Kirenski in general, who I am as an individual, and the legacies, that's above me, that's coming behind me. I want to be able to, have all those, to keep going down, down the family tradition line, whatever we have, those things to keep going.
We have another question here from Mr. Glover.
Okay, Mr. Glover is on it.
What is the responsibility of the community to be disenfranchised to the disenfranchised kids?
So I would say the responsibility just being a support system. Those kids, they don't have, when you think about it, they probably don't have they have a lack of support system. They have lack of resources, so the community can come together and provide those type of things. Even just creating like mentoring program in communities and everything, those type of things. I remember for me, I remember being in like elementary, middle school, and going to like a youth program, and just having that, being a part of that program, which was the Boys and Girls Club. That helped me out. That shaped a lot for me as I got older. And then just being in that community space, knowing that these are community volunteers that actually coming out to assist us as Boys and Girls Clubs, mentees and everything. So I just feel like, having that mentorship in the community and being that advocacy for those youth during those times, to just be there and be their support system.
So how do you carry your family's values into your professional life?
So my family value just pretty much is plain and simple, just always, the value of being a leader, being responsible for who you are. And so as in my professional role, that's something I always, even when I began my first career job as a counselor, that's something I remember sharing, like, hey, I have my family backbone behind me. So I know the reputation that I have with my family and that my family has, I have to continue that also in my professional setting as well too, because any way that I may, move into my professional setting, that's going to reflect on my upbringing. And so that's something that always, my values that my family instilled into me, they verbally, instilled things, or even me just physically seeing the values that my family, that they showcased to me, that I saw, that I looked up to. Those type of things that once I get in my professional setting currently, I'm still making sure that I model those values as I continue to grow within my professional career and so on. Did you froze, Mr. King?
Oh yeah. Oh
yeah. I'm sorry. That was it.
Yeah, I was just. I thought you was gonna say more.
Oh no, that was. I'm sorry.
Well, let's transition over to your work entering juvenile justice.
Okay.
Can you tell us what led you to begin your career as a juvenile detention counselor?
Yeah, so again, it pretty much goes back to me just always kind of looking at the counseling role. I could go back to when I was in middle school and high school, I always would go talk to my counselors and everything about any and everything. And I knew, like, I remember I used to go just hang out in one of my counselor offices, office, just to hang out there and everything. So I knew that, I always heard about, with the juveniles and everything. And I understand with juveniles, they do come and where they actually commit crimes and everything. So I felt like, if I could go into this type of setting I may would be able to change different lives and everything. I've realized that, sometimes, they all face different challenges and everything in life, which may cause them to act out and do certain things. And I always look at there's always a reason for something. And so going into, working in the juvenile setting as a counselor, that was my way of saying like, okay, once I go into this setting, what would be my approach? And I used to say, and I used to hear different style. They was like, if you could like at least just change one, you have done your job. And so that was my thing. I was like, if I could get into the facility as a counselor, and if I could help, change the life of a young person, help them like rethink things and, come up with better thinking skills and everything, then I know I could do my job and do that. And so once I came in, I just knew like my goal was to work on different youth, no matter wherever they come from, their backgrounds, and really let them know that I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to be a counselor for them. And I'm here to actually listen to them and hear them out. And I realized, those are the type of things growing up. I wanted people to hear me out and not judge me based on certain things. If I didn't do certain things right or something like that, there's always a reason. So again, I just want to kind of share that and, share that with my youth that I dealt with, that, hey, we here. Let's talk about it. Let's unpack it. That used to be my favorite thing. Let's unpack it. And I used to tell my students, like, they knew my thing. If you come in my office, you're going to leave out crying. Because I'm gonna break you down. My goal is to break you down to your lowest, and then that way we could work on ways to pick you back up, and so we could carry out and see how you could get a better outlook on life and everything. So that was something for me, because I feel like in order, and that's anybody, we have to get to those moment where we're gonna have to like get to our lowest to really realize who we are and what we could actually become. No matter what we've been through, whatever challenges we face in, trials and tribulation, we have to get to our lowest in order to grow.
So what did you learn in those early years that textbooks could never teach?
I would say for me, the experience. I pretty much like real life experiences. So of course, we're looking at textbooks and everything. We're really not really getting that, real relatable experiences. So really actually being able to actually speak to people and actually talk to certain people about certain things, and they actually experience on what they experienced. I felt like, for me, that helped me out a lot. I don't need anything that's, because I never I remember as a counselor and everything, and even just when I did therapy and everything, don't do my therapy and everything based off a book. I want it to be very natural. I don't want you to read certain things or like how to respond to this and that. And I remember like going through training counseling and everything. I'm like, no, I'm gonna do my counseling how I want to do it, because I want to make it personable. And so things that we're being taught in our books, yes, these are things that people have their research and everything, but I just feel like you get a better outcome when it's like really like one-on-one experience and relatable experience.
So I take it, what does that mean, that for you, authenticity when it comes to the counseling makes it more relatable so people can be who they are and they can relax and just let go?
Yes, I agree. I definitely agree with that 100%. Just being relatable, just we're here. Just like we're having our conversation, we're just being very transparent. And that's something I just feel like we have to be very transparent in life. There's no, beating around the bush, just be very transparent. Let's talk about these things. Let's see how we can like really work on these things to resolve certain issues, anything that we feel like that's going on in our community that's like hindering us, from doing certain things as a juvenile, as a young adult, and etc. We have to, talk about these things.
So what are some of the experiences that some of your kids have told you that they've gotten from the counselings with you? I mean, because I'm sure that being relatable has been a good thing for them.
Yes. Of course, I would say just age-wise, they felt very more, relatable. Although some of my kids, they used to think I was so much older, and I was like, no, I'm not too much older than you. And so from them to like really realize that, it was like, hey, he probably, Mr. Wilkerson just probably graduated high school a couple years ago or something like that, but now he's in this role. And also just seeing a Black counselor, that's something, of course, some of my students were predominantly African American race, males at that. And so for them to be able to see me in my role, that really gave them an outlook like, hey, like, this is someone I could look up to. Mr. Wilkerson, he just here to, not judge us. He's very relatable. Like, from country town. Most of my youth were from small country towns and everything as well too. And I'm like, hey, you can be able to get out your town and really, prosper in life. Like I used to share them like all the time. I'm like, hey, we're not perfect. There's times when I was in high school, even in college, where there are some things that I probably should have been, locked up for if I wasn't thinking right, if I wasn't being smart about certain things that, me and my peers, we could have got in trouble. I mean, I used to shit. I'm like, but it's all about your thinking process, your thinking skills and everything. So I'm like, there's nobody that's perfect. We all in the same, it's just the way how you actually get, move around for certain things. Unfortunately, they get caught on certain things. And I used to tell them like, sometimes you guys don't think about it. You don't think about the actions or the consequences. You just do it. And I told her, I was like, for me, I remember like, I know for one, I didn't want anybody having to call my family and say, hey, this and that, or I didn't want to be the one having to call my family and say, hey, I'm, in jail or something like that, because I'm like, at the end of the day, I know what my family instilled in me. And they knew, like, they know we're going to make mistakes, mistakes going to be made. But also I knew that I was going to have to deal with those mistakes as well, too. So I knew that never want to get myself in a situation that I knew I wasn't going to be able to get myself out of. And I used to share them with them. I was like, I remember just even getting, speeding tickets. Guess what? I'm going to call my grandmother. I'll call my grandma and say, I got a speeding ticket. And guess what she would do? But based off the connections that she had, she would make phone calls and she would get, make sure I get those speeding tickets taken care of. So I'm just like, certain things like that. I just show them like it's the smallest things that you can make mistakes on. But it's also about how your personality and the person that you are in the community as well too, because people are gonna willing to help you out based off they know that you're a good person. For me, always been a good kid, model kid, I would say, never had any major issues. So I knew that growing up, people in my community will always go, do anything they need to do to help me out in any type of situation. And so that's how I used to tell my students, like, these are the type of things you don't want to burn your bridge, you don't want to get out here and you don't want to cause all the different, issues and everything. And then guess what? You don't have that support system. Because your support system don't only have to be your family. It can be just your neighbors, a stranger, anything. They willing to help you. They see that you're doing something in life. They'll help you out.
Well, that sounds like critical thinking. Is that
Yes.
something that you teach your students to do?
Yes, critical thinking. We actually used to have different courses and everything that they would go through little different critical thinking trainings, all the different things to kind of help them out and have them kind of work on ways to, get their thinking process together as they, move forward, as they go back into the community and everything. And even just being in a facility, you still have to have, work on those type of skills and being in a facility because it's like you're detained. And so, of course, being detained, your mind is all over the place because you like, you detained, you kind of locked up and everything. So you still got to have those critical thinking skills so that any issues that arise inside the facility, you know how to handle them and you know how to remove yourself from those situations. Or even before you get into those situations, you know how to get, work on ways not to get into those things.
Well, we got two questions here. We got one from Ania. I put it on the
Okay.
screen. She says, "Can you share one of your biggest success stories with a young person you counseled?"
I would say, I would say I should have a young person that I actually counsel who actually, once they became a certain age, they reached out to me on Facebook and they was like, hey, Mr. Wilkerson, I got my own business now. And it was something that they used to share with me all the time when I was in the facility. And it was like they wanted to do this. They, this type of business when they get out and everything. And so, of course, I'm like, okay, as long as you do what you got to do, you got to realize, yes, you're here, you're detained right now. So everything as a juvenile that you have done, this stuff is going to be behind you. And so once they got out and they, became a certain age, and I used to share the same thing with them as, as my counselor used to share with them. Once you become a certain age, and that's when we become friends on social media and everything. And so I would say the success story just knowing that when they reached out to me, the child, he ended up having a child and everything, and he was so proud about it. And I'm like, hey, now you have something to live for. You have to go out and get a job. And I'm working here, I'm in school, I have my daughter now and everything. So, and his mom used to reach out to me on Facebook as well too, and just share, how much, she was grateful, me just being that counselor, because I could have just been that type of counselor where I'm just pretty much just documenting notes and everything and just, don't even follow up with that youth. And so I knew with the mom, I always wanted to make sure I had some type of contact. And that's something I used to share with her that, hey, I want to see his progression once he get released. I want to see when he become a young adult, how do he turn his life around? And so now just seeing certain things that he do on Facebook and everything, it just always like warms my heart, knowing that, maybe he was one of the ones that I helped, change that life. And of course, like at the time, I didn't think it would probably be him, but he was the one. And he was very challenging when I was his counselor. And so just now, just seeing him thriving in life and being now a young adult, I get on Facebook, I'm like, wow, like it's just amazing to me. So he'll share pictures with his daughter and everything. And I was just like, okay, I know that, he realized, and it took him a minute to realize like, hey, I was going to go through certain things. Everything that Mr. Wilkerson taught me as a counselor, sharing the good and bad, he knew that those type of things stuck with him. And to now, again, he's thriving in life.
And our next question here is from Mr. Glover, a comment. Mr. Glover says, I need your grandma's number.
So, so unfortunately, my grandmother transitioned back in 2024. So her, everything about her still lives within me. Every day, I wake up, I think about her. So again, like she instilled so much into me. And Mr. Glover, if you would knew her personally, you would know, anything about her you would love. And I feel like everything that I do is kind of a spitting image of her that I do in life. So unfortunately, she's in heaven.
So, how did working inside a detention center change your understanding of youth trauma?
So working inside, again, just knowing that, there's reason why, there's a reason to why, kids commit certain crimes and act out in different ways, disciplinary, education wise and everything. So being in a juvenile detention setting really realized to me that, yes, they coming in here and now they, of course, they having that mentality that I'm locked up, I'm detained. And I used to share with them like, hey, you guys got to get out of here at some point. But also they had to realize, there's some trauma that you guys face when you were much younger that you probably don't even know that you're faced. Even just smaller things that are going on in their households that they don't realize that affected them to where they got to the point where, like for instance, like kids that run away from home and everything. I dealt with a lot of kids who do that. And so my thing with them, I was like, okay, why are you running away from home? Give me some reason that you would think that you'll be running away from home. And just having a conversation with them, and they would share like, well, I don't like that, I witnessed, abuse in the home. If it was parents, it was physical, emotional abuse and everything. So I used to tell them like, those are traumas that are gonna live within you until you get your healing. And now that you're here in a juvenile setting, my goal and other staff members, it's our job and our duty and our purpose to make sure that we help out with you guys and also help you overcome those challenges. There's always, again, we're not perfect. But if we can help instill these things into you now in ways that you could kind of overcome those challenges, those traumas and everything, they're gonna still be there, but it's just how you're gonna approach them and actually tackle them and actually move forward in life. And so again, just being in a juvenile setting, it was different for me because it was like, of course, we behind locked doors and everything. So of course, I knew that the youth that we dealt with, they was going to be coming in, they was going to be traumatized. Even at just coming into those type of setting is traumatizing. I remember for me, my first day, and I'm like, just hearing these different loud locks and everything. I was just like, what have I got myself into? And I actually felt like I was actually detained by working there, but I love what I do, and I knew that I was going to make that impact and also help those youth overcome those challenges as they can move on. Now, yes, they may come back and be repeat offenders, but I used to tell them sometimes you're going to do so many things until it get to that point. And of course, we don't want to look at either death or either they go to we call them bit boy prisons and everything like that. But there's ways that you can kind of stop those things before getting to that point. So I used to just say them like, hey, everything you're going to experience as a juvenile, get it out the way because you got to move forward. And so that was my thing. I just always, just being in the facility just always stuck with me that, hey, they have trauma. They got to work on their trauma. And then from there, we would see a decrease in their behavior patterns. And we'll see more of an increase if we're working on those things, increase in their education. And that's something I always just share with them. At the end of the day, no one can never take your education. No matter how much trouble you get in, focus on your education. Your education is key. It's going to go a long way. Because if you have that as a backbone, you can really work on other things as well. But just having an education, and that education will help even them realize and really be able to study how they can actually deal with their own trauma as they get older by just, having that education.
Okay, I got two questions here for you.
Okay.
One of them is a follow up. Well, they're both by Mr. Glover, but one is a follow up to his previous comment of needing your grandmother's number. The
Okay.
first one here is he says, "Oh, I see her light in you,"
Thank you.
and his next one is, as I put it on the screen, "Do you have any aspirations or future goals of expanding your reach, or do you see yourself stabilize in your current role?"
So actually I have two answers for both of those. I do see myself really kind of going into a different space, and being able to share my story and different things that I can do. So I would say right now I'm always focusing on, joining different organizations where I can actually, be able to bring things that I have to the table as well too. Um, I would say it's a funny thing, but friends and everything around me, they always call me the mayor. And so I was like, maybe that's gonna be something I could like look into, and that could be something I could be able to carry and actually show and actually be that person to like move around and be able to like, speak on my experiences, things that I have done in work wise, dealing with juveniles, and actually be that, in that play that vital role for the communities that I'm in. So even I just think just becoming that leader that I actually want to be, no matter what the role is, just being that leader. So I do see myself in the next couple of years. I feel like if there's some opportunity for me to be able to get into certain roles, never know, become a motivational speaker or something like that. That could be an opportunity for me. And then also in my role, yes, I feel like as I'm growing in my career field. I do feel like there's going to be other opportunities where I could actually get into higher roles, where I'm actually able to make more of an impact as well too. So I feel like those opportunities will be coming down the line. That's something I'm always thinking about. What's my next big thing? And so we never know. My goals in the next 2, 3 years, 5 years to really, really focus on my next big thing, my next big role where I feel like I will be able to make that impact and also, make that impact for the community and for those that coming behind me as well.
Okay, and our next our next question here, I'll put that on the screen for you, is I would love to connect with you as to have a program for residency and reentry. And I'm actually in conversation with the Atlanta Police Foundation. Oh, wow.
Okay. All right, so Mr. Go, yes, that's great. That's great. And I'm very familiar with the reentry process and everything. With my agency, we do have a reentry unit and everything. So even just working along with them, I feel like, that's something that, you really have to have a lot of resources for, because you kind of preparing with our youth, we're preparing them to like get back into the community. So any type of things that they could provide for them as reentry and everything, those type of things plays a vital role in knowing that you putting these type of things in place for them once they get released, and that's providing housing, education opportunities, anything that helped them to really kind of get back into the community and really reshape and rebrand who they are as an individual. So I would love to connect with you regarding that, Mr. Glover.
And so, my next question to you is, what misconceptions do people have about young people in the juvenile justice system? Because I'm sure that there's lots and lots of things that people say unbeknownst to them, not
Yes.
realizing how harsh and critical and negative that the things they say.
Yes. Just plain and simple. That all juveniles is in the juvenile system, they're always gonna, they're gonna do bad things. They're gonna get in trouble. They're, one of the biggest thing, a threat to the society. And that's something, even as a counselor, I remember just kind of like sitting in different court hearings and everything like that. And just to hear certain things like that being said to youth is like, that's so traumatizing, knowing that, they gotta, hear adults or, people saying things like that. No, yes, because they have committed major crimes. It could be crimes as aggravated assault, murder, and everything. But again, my thing I used to tell you guys are not perfect. It's a mistake. Yes, the mistake. So it's some really harsh mistakes, but you can work around this. And so that just knowing that that's something that people always say, it bothered me. And that's something like even working with DJJ or working with kids that I know that have been in different crimes and everything. That's something that we're trying to like, it's not all about being in a juvenile setting. It's about what we're doing. Do we having them come into these facilities to actually make changes for them and provide the resources they can get in the facility. So again, once they get released, they have these resources. It's not to shame them and talk down on them and everything, because again, no matter what we do, we're judging them. And that's something that the community is really big on when we judge our youth. We're judging them based off one simple mistake that they may have made, and we're not allowing them the opportunity to really work on those things. And like I said earlier, it's not going to happen overnight. You're going to have youth who are going to commit crimes, multiple times in order for them to be able to get the understanding that, hey, okay, enough is enough. And so that's something as, adults, as a community, we have to make sure that we really work with these youth in a juvenile setting in the community and just share with them like, hey, you can work on this. You can move forward. Everything's a temporary. We got it. It's just all about our approach, and we can't go at them with a negative approach when knowing that we're still traumatizing them by sharing and just dimming their light because of something that they have experienced in life. Because we don't know, we can't judge a youth because we don't know what they have been through, and that's something I used to share. Mm-hmm.
Now, I was going to say, our next question is a really good question here for you from Mr. C. Timothy Andre. I'll put it on the screen.
Okay.
He says, do you integrate religious considerations into your counseling practice, or do you choose to exclude them due to legal, regulatory, or organizational policies?
So yes and no. That's something that whenever I would deal with my, different youth, that's something, if they share something, whatever their beliefs and everything, we'll go off from that and everything. But I would say, of course, most of my youth that I have dealt with over the years, of course, they have always been, Christianity based and everything. They always asking for Bibles and everything. And we would do in the agency, we do provide where they can actually have Bible study and everything to come in. We have our chaplain services and everything. So, those are the opportunity where kids can actually, really kind of get a better insight on, the whole Christianity, whatever their background is. I, never discriminate against any other, background or whatever beliefs. Whatever you choose to believe, we're going to focus on that. Whatever your higher power is, we'll focus on that. And that's something I used to tell my students, like, let me know. Because I don't want to be the one, basing it off my belief, and I don't want to put my beliefs on someone else, and then that's something that they don't believe in. And so at the end of the day, like I just told them, no matter what your higher power is, you have an individual, you have someone, a spiritual person that's there that you could look up to and that you could take everything to. And so again, if it's in policy, I never, I did what I had to do, but also I knew that, hey, these are real conversations you just gotta have with them. Like, believe whoever you want to believe in and stick to it. Never allow anybody to tell you differently. You have your own, rights and your spiritual power, higher power that you actually look up to.
So tell us, how did those early experiences shape your approach as a victim advocate specialist?
So actually, from coming into a counselor, of course, I dealt with the juveniles that have committed crimes against different people in the community that was could have been other juveniles or adults and etc. So coming over into the victim advocate space, I knew that my role now, I would be actually dealing on the other end with the victims and the impact of the victims from the juveniles. And that's something, working with the juveniles at the time as a counselor, these type of things I used to share with them, like, hey, you have to actually realize you got to kind of have to look at and put yourself in the position of the victims as well, too. Because now that, yes, you coming from different trauma and everything, and you did certain things to these victims, now they also have been traumatized because based on certain things that the juvenile has committed against them. If it was like, them individually, if it's like a next of kin, family member, or etc. So being in that victim advocate's role is knowing that, now I have to have that background to actually support the victims and make sure that I can provide the resources that they need in order to help them through their process of being traumatized from dealing with loss of life cases, aggravated assault, robbery, anything like that. These type of things really would play vital roles in different people's lives as they move forward. And so, having victims reach out where they may feel unease if a juvenile is getting released to come back into the community. So in my role, that's something I would have to share with them, like, hey, they're going to get released. They're juveniles. They're getting released, allow them to have another opportunity. But we still have to make sure that the victims do feel safe once they come back in the community and everything. Because again, you got to think that victims, they have this, look at the juveniles where they're looking at them as a bad person, because of what they have experienced with them and the crimes that they have committed against them. And so have to like make sure that they are aware of those type of things, and that, we providing those sources, those resources for them. They want to seek counseling. And that's one of the biggest things, in order to, like, if you experience some traumatic experience that someone committed against you, you're going to need counseling. You're going to have to you need all the resources that you could get in order to help you heal from those tragic incidents, to move forward in life and everything. And so, that's something that I always, in my role, just dealing with the victims, making sure that they are aware and they do understand in my role and what I can do. Also, you have our juveniles that have committed, crimes against other juveniles. And so that's something that's really big as well, too, because now it's like a peer-to-peer relationship that, really going to cause, because now kids thinking like, okay, another you did this to me. If it's from bullying that led into, something else, this something that, they're going to be stuck with the rest of their life, knowing that they got bullied or they was, had injuries, because of another juvenile and everything. So, just making sure that we are protecting them as well, too. it's just all just making sure that we just having that strong support system with our victims in the community, and then of course our victims that are in our custody as well too, because just because they're in our custody as a juvenile, they also are still victims as well too, because they have experienced certain things that have led to them to be detained because they was a victim of certain things as well.
Let's transition over to your work in victim advocacy and trafficking work.
Okay.
What does a victim advocate specialist, actually do day to day?
So pretty much again, we're notifying, working hand in hand with the victims, notifying them on anything that's dealing with the youth that have committed crimes against them, and just making sure that we provide any type of resource that they would need. If it's resources in the community that I could help find for them, like I said, speaking on counseling, anything like that, compensation, for restitution or something like that, any type of things like that that would help and benefit the victims. Being into the human trafficking role, that's one role that I'm very passionate about. A lot of people don't know that, Atlanta is one of the hubs for human trafficking. And so as I, continue to grow in my career and my job duties and everything, human trafficking is like really plays a vital role in my everyday, work. Like that's something I'm very focused on, helping to protect our youth and our younger generation, because it's so many things that's going on, and it's just not happening in major cities. It's happening in rural towns, smaller towns, and everything. So knowing that, I can do whatever I can by being a part of different organization, task force for human trafficking, anything like that that's a relatable around human trafficking, I want to make sure that I can do whatever I can to know that I'm able to help, locate a youth, provide resources for a youth that's actually currently going through human trafficking, because sometimes human trafficking actually going on in the homes. And a lot of people don't realize that it could be some of the youth, it could be their parents, a close family member, church members, and anything like that. You just never know. So those type of things that I want to make sure that I'm always like sharing with people, like you have to like make sure that you're on the lookout for any type of thing. And I just, even just growing up, I remember like there are certain times where my family members are like, I couldn't go to certain people's houses and stuff like that. And so, I tell people now, like these type of things today, kids, they just get involved in so much because they don't have certain resources in the home. So of course they're gonna run away where they could get these resources from traffickers and everything. And so my goal is to try to tell them, like, you don't have to do that. There's other option that you could go into different organizations that actually are welcoming, you to come in. Like they understand that what you're experiencing, you don't have to go out into the community, into a trafficker, and get told that you'll get, these lavish items, money, all the different stuff. There's other things that you could actually run into that will actually protect you, and where you're not being, get into the dark world, because that's a whole different, world. Being into the human trafficking world is very dark, is very nasty, and just so much that goes on into human trafficking.
I have another great question here for you that's in the chat.
Okay.
And this is Ania. She says her perception is that the system is set up to fail when it comes to the ability to truly change the trajectory of these kids' lives. If you had a blank slate, what would the juvenile system look like?
I would say
That's a deep question.
it is. And that's something I always used to I always look at, of course, and that's something that kids and everything juvenile used to share, is like, well, the system gonna fail me regardless and everything like that. And that's something that we can go on for days, and we could have so many different conversations about. We know that there's certain systems and everything that's are meant to fail, but it's about how we can do as a community. If we come together as a one community and really come together on really trying to make those changes, and we understand that it can fail, but what we can do as a community, like really become and get into these certain leaders position roles and everything, that we can actually change that trajectory on the outcome of the system failing our youth and everything, because there's so many opportunities where we just got to be able to speak up on those things. So these local elections, anything like that, we have to get a part of those things so that we can actually have a voice and actually helping making those changes. So having a clean slate, I feel like having that clean slate, knowing that okay, we could have that youth that have that whole clean slate, just start over. Let's empower that and let's give them that opportunity. There's gonna be there's gonna be things where they're gonna mess up. They're gonna, because it's like, again, once you have done so many things in life, you kind of prone to it. And so if you constantly, always in trouble or doing certain things, running away, you're going to continue doing those things until, again, you get that proper, help that you need and resources that you need. And so, again, just having that clean slate is going to take a lot, but it's going to take the community to step in and really be a helping hand support system and actually bringing those and changing that trajectory around and really understanding that we could work around the system if we just do this as a community.
As you mentioned, Atlanta being a hub for trafficking.
Yes.
I just want to go back and just say that when I was an employee at a particular agency, we actually had some work going on where there were task force that was set up around here in Atlanta that really shocked me. That I don't think a lot of people realize just how bad trafficking is here in Atlanta.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that absolutely stood out, the key thing that you said, is that there are family that's doing this to a lot of their children.
Yes.
It's family that's doing that.
Yes.
In situations like that, if you guys have actually caught anyone or so forth, what did you guys do to not only remove that child, but what were some of the repercussions that these people had to face?
I can't share, so much of it, but of course, to my knowledge and certain things that, of course, they would put things in place. Having that task force unit for like the task force, human trafficking task force for the state of Georgia, you have so many different law enforcement, community partners, nonprofit organizations that are able to be a part of these task force, and that we could all come in as a community and actually put things in place. If we know, just for instance, if we have a child that's they're being trafficked, by their local family, someone in the community and everything, put things in place to get those traffickers removed. Even if we have to take those youth out of the homes and everything and get them into custody where they're safe and everything, and they can actually start a life on their own, get into independent living. Again, we have like the organization I'm one of the board of directors on is our Rev Up, and that's an organization that really plays a vital role in also helping and shaping the lives of the youth that's actually falling victims to trafficking. They provide so many different resources and training, not only to them, but also to the community on how to, help when we have cases like this, when you're dealing with youth who actually experiencing trafficking and everything, and actually how they actually can, move forward and get those resources. So again, just, knowing that you have these type of organizations and everything set in stone, and know that they're going to go above and beyond to fight and actually get these traffickers taken care of and get them out their streets, get them out the community. And, I hate to say, get them locked up. And just because you get in one, it's so many more out there that's so underhanded that you don't even know. And so it's these type of things, just knowing these different signs. If you see something, I tell people, report it. If you see something that just don't seem normal to you, report it. You just never know. And, I would say for me, that's something I'm always, even just driving around and being in certain areas, I guess because I'm just so used to it, like I'm always like watching certain things, because you just never know that if I see the interaction or a child with an older person or something, I try not to do it sometimes, because it's like, of course, like that can't really get to you, because it's like you're always, I guess, always working, and you don't want to overdo it sometimes, but sometimes you just never know. And so, like I said, I would say just I do a lot of human trafficking trainings. I love going to human trafficking training because you never could get too much information. There's something, just even different training, that it could be the same information, but having somebody else really train you on something else differently in a different way, it give you more ways to really approach certain situations, because we're all natural, we're all humans. We never know, once we get into those type of situation, we never know what we would do. And so you will always want to just know like how you can actually maneuver and how you can actually react to certain situations. So, again, just speaking of, coming from, youth that's, being trafficked by, victims, like people in their home, that's something that for us, we're going to look at like, how is that possible? But you got to think human trafficking is a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yes, it is.
So it's money. You have different organizations and stuff that's a part of these type of things, because guess what? It's money. So again, just being a part of a certain organization as Wrapped Up Kids, other organization and task force, we're here to make sure that we could put these type of things, or we can make it visible so people can see. If you go in a restaurant, you're gonna see something on the wall that says about human trafficking, how to report it. The airport here in Atlanta is very big on human trafficking, making sure that they, it's everywhere. And that's something we have to make sure, just even our local stores, smaller environments, and that we actually advocate, we actually put this and make it visible so that people can be aware of these type of things. I remember just saying a couple of weeks ago, and like in Middle Georgia, they had a big human trafficking case, and just me being from that area, that was just like, wow, like this, like in our backyard. And I remember talking to my mom and them about it. I'm just like, yeah, like this literally down the street from us. And knowing that these type of things are happening in these smaller towns, that should let people know it's not always in major cities. These smaller towns are dealing with these type of things. Of course, things are kind of being swept under the rug because it's a smaller town. And then we always kind of put the, bright light on major cities. But a lot of these type of things are happening in these smaller towns.
How do you support youth who have experienced trafficking or exploitation?
Yeah, so supporting them again, I know I keep kind of reiterating counseling, but they have to get the counseling. They have to do, the different assessments and everything to, for them to like really figure out, the things that they experience and everything, because, there's so many things that a youth can experience during trafficking. It comes from sexual assault, anything, it's so much that plays a vital role into them being into those type of things, being exploited at such young age and everything. And sometimes, and it's sad, but a lot of youth, they do, once they get into it, they feel like it's okay. And that's because they're being brainwashed, because they thinking that it's okay for them to do these certain things, that, that this older person, and I'm gonna just, be very transparent, this sick individuals that can be both, that can be both male and females, because that's something else that the society always messes up on. We always think when you hear traffic, you think of a male figure. It's not always like that. It's also females. And also, believe it or not, the adults, they're actually getting, kids to come in that they're trafficked already. They getting them come in, and they also allowing them to go out in the community and actually bringing their other kids as well too. When that is really sad, because now that's just sad, knowing that you have an adult having kids out here trafficking other kids and bringing them in. And so that's something that I just hear different stories, different testimonies that people have shared, how they have, overcame being trafficked as a child and things that they witnessed and everything. I'm like, how is this possible? But it's possible because, as a kid, we can all put ourselves in that place where, hey, if somebody tell me that they're going to give me money, they're going to give me clothes, jewelry, and everything that I know I can't get from my family, guess what? I'm going to do that as a child. And so that's something that you just have to make sure that, we're kind of like helping them, really like realize like, hey, everything you experienced, it was not okay. It's not okay for you to go through this and not okay for you to do X, Y, and Z. So now, we're going to put these services in place, get your counseling, get you to heal from this. So then from now, you could be able to go and you guys should go back and you could also help others that could come out of those spaces from being trafficked and everything. You could help them and you can help them move into different parts of their life that's more positive, where they could kind of look behind, put everything behind them and being trafficked.
I have another great comment here for you. And forgive me if I say your name wrong. I think it's Maya Simone. It says such great points, Kirenski.
Thank you, Maya. Thank you.
Oh, so I did say her name, right?
Yes, you did.
What are the biggest challenges facing juvenile victims today?
For the juvenile victims, I would just say, again, just knowing how to move from being victimized and everything. Again, like I stated earlier, juveniles, they don't share, they don't like to talk about certain things that they experience in life and everything. And so that's one of the challenges, because if you don't speak about certain things as you get older, guess what? Those type of things are going to be stuck in your head. You're going to be living with these type of things, and then you're pretty much going to like continue growing, and you're going to not heal from those things. So being victimized of certain things, again, it just always go back into making sure that they can get and they can be, have the understanding that they can reach out and they can seek help. And understand that they're not going to be judged just for going out to getting help. And that's something the juveniles, they do feel like just because they have experienced X, Y, and Z, they went into trafficking. Again, once you get a juvenile that has went into trafficking, if they actually start speaking about it, they will say they're gonna feel like they're gonna be judged because they actually doing something that, of course, you would hear grown adults doing. But them as juveniles, they're doing things that adults will be doing that they shouldn't be doing. But these are the type of things that the juvenile are experiencing. So knowing that they're going to be judged for that, and that's something that whenever I deal with a human trafficking case with a juvenile, that's something I always go into my approaches. I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to, say that you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. We got to work on ways to get you to overcome this and get you safe and get you to move on in life. And so that, these type of things, it's not okay. We're not here to judge. So the whole judgment thing, that's something, again, as a community, we have to make sure we're not judging the victims because of things that they have experienced, because they didn't ask for these type of things. Anything that we go through in life that's negative, we don't ask for it. It just happened. Some things just, like I said, it got our own family, neighbors and everything. These things happen. We see it every day. Even when we go to sleep, guess what? There's a thing that's happening while we're sleeping. And so just knowing that we can, wake up and get up and fight as much as we can for these youth, these juveniles, these victims, we're gonna do that.
So tell us about your process when you build trust with young people who have been deeply hurt. Tell us about that process.
Yeah. So again, I speaking earlier, just having that approach. I always share my stories and everything, and sometimes you have to be careful when you're sharing certain things that are too deep to certain youth and everything, because our stories and everything can also be traumatic experience for them hearing it. But I just always feel like if I'm gonna be able to sit down and just say we're in the office together, if I'm gonna be able to sit in my office and I gotta allow you to share certain things with me, I need to be able to share certain things with you as well too. So that way we both can actually have that, where we can kind of meet. We meet halfway. Like you experience this, hey, I experienced this, but I was able to work around this. I was able to do this. I was able to do that. I was also able to, really, take advantage of different resources that I could take, in order to help me to move on. And so that's something in juvenile, like I said, I always my approach was just to get them down where they go. I'm gonna get them emotional. I'm gonna hit them in their core where I know it's gonna hurt. We're gonna talk about certain things that I know that's like triggering them, but you know, it's going to like challenge them. And you know, of course, you know, I would have youth that would actually, you know, they were in acting out based off the conversation, but stuff like that, I actually used to love because I was like, now I know I got you because you can't handle the conversation. So now we got to figure out how I could get you to handle these type of conversations, because these hard conversations we have to have in order to move on. And those type of things, I remember, you know, with me growing up and everything, even as a young adult now, I like to have hard conversations when I meet with my mentors, and you know, if I, you know, go to my therapist and everything and I talk, I want to have a hard conversation because I know in order to have these hard conversations, they're gonna help me be able to move out and for me to get out those dark spaces that I may end up in, and that I know that the juveniles they in as well too. But we gotta have those hard conversations.
So let's, you know, we discussed, you know, that we do Black History 365.
Mm-hmm.
And when I ask you who were the most influential persons in your life and career, you mentioned it was your parents, your grandmother, and your siblings.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us, why do you consider your parents to be central figures in your personal Black history?
For me, my parents for sure. My parents, they influenced me in so many ways because, you know, losing my siblings, you know, that's something that I'm not a parent, and but so knowing that, you know, something like that they had to endure as a parent and losing their kids and everything, it speaks about who they are as an individual as they, you know, continue to move on in life and everything. So, you know, just seeing the resiliency that my parents, you know, have overcame, you know, and still to this day, like I know it's challenging. You know, it's always been challenging. And just knowing that, you know, they could still be, it's gonna take time for them to overcome, and you know, they could be able to move in life and everything. So for me, that's, you know, just knowing that as a Black parents and, you know, going through those certain things, because again, you got to think that, you know, there's times that in a Black community, we're not always going to get the resources that, you know, we would need as a Black community. And that's something that I noticed, like even going through those times, like I do feel like, you know, my parents, you know, at the time they should have got counseling and everything, and continue to get counseling. But that's something as a Black community that we, you know, fall on. Like we, you know, we was always taught that, you know, you experience this, you go through this and you move on. And again, it take me back to just kind of studying psychology and really understanding the whole everything about the whole different world of being in that background of psychology. That's something that, you know, society always, you know, bring on the Black community, where we do fall short when it comes down to resources. And so just even knowing that my parents having to endure that and how they was able to kind of like move on through life, knowing that, you know, yes, the resources were there, but guess what? We didn't have that opportunity, or it wasn't presented to us, to my parents, to get these type of resources and put in place. Like, yes, for me as a child, yes, that opportunity came to me from being in a school setting. But as I got older, I've always felt like I needed those type of, you know, resources as I got older. And to now as a young adult, you know, I still get those resources. Like anytime I need to call on anybody, you know, as a therapist, as a counselor, whoever, even working with my agency, you know, I make sure that I actually take in the opportunity to work with, you know, our program that's offered for state employees that have experienced different traumatic experience and everything like that. So knowing that, you know, that just speaks, you know, the whole Black history for me in the space of my parents, because, you know, they're my role models because they was able to endure certain things that were very traumatic, but also I could see them moving forward in life. And it's not easy. You know, nothing's never been perfect. There's things that has always come about. Anytime you go through certain things, there's things that's gonna, you know, be the reason why to, you know, what happened prior to. And so that's something I always, you know, start looking back to, and like, okay, I understand my parents went through this. You know, it's a reason why. And so it goes back to the counseling, it goes back to the trauma that they experience as parents and so far on.
I have a comment here. This one's from put it on the screen there. Shauna K. Wah. Yes, resources are so important in our communities.
Yes, it definitely true. Resources. We have to have those resources. No matter it's so much out here, and that's the thing in our community. And that's something we always share. Um, reach out. We have our phones in the palms of our hands now. We got anything. It's so much. We could just now we got Chat GBT. We could get on Chat GBT and just, hey, what's some, counseling services, anything that we need in our community near us, it will give us. So we have so many different resources now that we don't have to rely on other people to get those resources. Now it's there for us. Unfortunately, again, it's always going to be challenging trying to get those resources from people in the community. But now we got to put ourselves in our roles and actually kind of, get out there and do our own research and get our resources that we actually need for ourselves. Because guess what? Today world is not going to always happen like that, whereas things are just going to be given to us.
Um, I've got another question and comment here in the
Okay.
chat here. This is from Ania.
Okay.
Ania, I tell you, you must be from the old generation because I understand what you're saying, but I want you to answer this question if you could, Kirenski.
Okay.
Ania says, but wouldn't you agree that some of it's generational in terms of older people's perception that you just need to power through adversity and you're weak if you can't?
Yes, I definitely agree. That I definitely agree, and that kind of goes again. That dude goes back to the older generation and the
Yeah.
mindset. Even generation and generation, they it go back so far, and just even just watching different movies and hearing different things, how people really move through life. That was their way of moving through life. Like, you experience this, guess what? Keep going.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
it go back to me just like really like I remember having a professor when I was in undergrad. We would talk about these type, and this same thing. We had a similar thing that I remember us talking about how that have hindered people as they got older, because now it's like any little thing that you go through, if it's major things, guess what? You're just gonna try to push past, and guess what? Those things are gonna cause eventually as we get older. You always hear stress is a killer. Dealing with depression and all the different stuff. And people don't realize, because we have been told from generation to generation to just deal with it. It'll be okay. Life gonna move on. No, life is gonna move on, but you're also gonna be carrying that baggage with you as you keep going. And guess what? As you keep going, the generation coming after you gonna continue that same thing. And it's never gonna get healed. It's never gonna get worked on, because guess what? We're just being told, just put your, just put your big girls on and just keep going, like, and not deal with the emotional side of things. And that's something I do feel like we have to be able to deal with the emotional aspect of certain things that we experience in life, because if we don't, we're gonna be messed up. And then that's how now you just see like so many different things that people are dealing with, the mental health issues in today's world, because guess what? They're being told to just keep going, don't worry about it, move on. But then a lot of things kind of relates to our mental space and how we actually start dealing with things as we get older. And that's something that, again, is such a big thing that's going on. Like, I remember just saying something earlier about, an episode with a family member. And I'm like, these type of things that we got to look at. These people have probably experienced some things that they just have been told and told over and over not to worry about it, just move on. And now they acting out because they don't know how to deal with certain things now.
Well, now, I got to say this. I mean, I know that, your generation is definitely a different breed. I'm going to tell you, when I was coming up, this is what taught me and what taught a lot of us that's in my age range and the time and generation I grew up. This is how we learned about critical thinking and knew how to solve and to get that help when you needed it. I think as the times have evolved and changed, where you still have some people that's my age or older are saying this, is not saying that to the point that you're trying to cut you off from the resources and you don't need to get this. I think it's the manner in which the tone that comes across kind of throws that message in there that everybody can't handle that, which is true.
Yes.
Because I have some family members that to this day probably didn't understand that process, didn't know how to process it, and have issues dealing today, which speaks to the point that you're talking about. But it wasn't saying, oh, well, you don't need to get no help. But I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And so let's see. Here is oh wow. Shauna K. She says, put it on the screen. That's right. Now that we're older, it's up to us to take control of our healing.
Yes.
And then she says here in another comment, I'll put it on the screen. She says the older generation needs healing as well. We all do. Okay,
Yeah.
Shauna.
And speaking on that, and that's something that I also want to like actually even start doing counseling for older generation, not only just juveniles, because again, it goes to that, maybe it may take me as a millennial to actually work with older people who actually have experienced different trauma and everything to actually take a different approach from my standpoint as a millennial and how I actually deal with things. Because again, it could go back to generation before them, how they actually look at certain things, and then now it's like, we're moving, we're changing things. We're changing the outlook. Even the generation that coming behind me, millennials, they're a different generation, different breed too as well. And I call them, the COVID generation. And so, it's a lot. And a lot of my students and everything, they are coming from the COVID generation. So, of course, even then, they didn't even know how to process, because we got to think them dealing with COVID and everything, that was new for them. And that's traumatizing to them. And so a lot of experience that they dealt with then, they're gonna grow up with these type of challenges, and they're gonna keep going. So now I gotta do my part and actually trying to make sure I can help them out to understand, like, hey, you experienced this, you went through, that's something that we would never think that we would experience. I look at movies and stuff that actually, bring about, being on quarantine. I'm like, this movie is so old, and they were speaking about quarantine, and I didn't even know what it was at the time. But now having to experience that, and then our younger generation having to experience that, it's so much that, we got to step in. Each generation got to step in and actually really help each other to like understand that we're all facing so much, and we got to understand it's not okay. To like stick on things. We got to work on things. We got to move forward, but we have to like really like shine a light on these type of things that we're experiencing in life, in order to heal and grow. She said,
Shauna say, help us all. So what wisdom did your grandmother pass down that you now carry forward?
The wisdom, I would say just her wisdom, just being like knowing how to maneuver in life. That's something, I've witnessed my grandmother experience so much in life. Even being a younger kid, there's some things I witnessed that she experienced and everything. Even just being a Black woman, just trying to, work in different jobs and everything, and even just, growing, from her childhood, things that I, understood and I was able to like, learn from her and everything. And so that wisdom, I would just say, just, for me, just again, just being who I am as an individual. Whenever I'm walking into a room, to own the presence in the room and everything. That's something that, I always notice my grandmother, like she can go in any space and anything. Guess what? She's gonna make her connections, she's gonna own her presence, and people gonna know that she's in the room. And so as that wisdom, that's something I always carry with me, always just having, a positive approach on life and everything. Again, the wisdom, even just, again, like I said earlier, like dealing with certain people, individual and everything that, come across your path and everything, just always having that positive image. And so, even, during her transition and everything, I just knew that, it was challenging, but it's also, I knew that these type of things that now I got to make sure I carry these type of things on with me now that she has transitioned, before us, and now I got to continue these type of things. So her legacy, her wisdom, everything about her, I'm pretty much, living for her at this point and living in remembrance of her. So anything that I'm doing, I make sure that, hey, this is something I know my grandmother, she instilled in me some kind of way. If it, just anything that she have done in the community, or even just being, her helping me, because again, she's been there for me since I was a baby. She was there when I lost my siblings. So she made sure that, hey, I had the lifestyle that I needed to have. I never, wanted or asked for anything. I could call on her. Like I said, even as a young adult, if I need to call her and say, hey, I need some money, and she was like, I'm gonna talk to your aunt and your uncle for you, she gonna make sure I get anything that I needed. So just that wisdom, knowing that, anything, everything that she have experienced that I noticed and I was relatable to, those type of things, will always carry on with me as I continue to grow older.
I'm gonna do this last comment, and then I'll have a final question for you.
Okay.
This is from, I hope I say your name right, so please don't get mad at me. Patricia Book. I'll put it on the screen. She says, just to let you know, I am listening.
Thank you. Thank you.
So my final question to you is: how have your siblings influenced your resilience and leadership?
I would say with my resiliency, definitely have, shaped my resiliency. Again, experiencing that at such a young age, going through life, knowing that myself and my family had experience that, it really made me to who I am today, and able to really like kind of go through, a lot of things, because because of my siblings, I went through so much. And I realized as I got older, certain things that I experienced in life, it really kind of goes back to me losing my siblings at such a young age, and that trauma and everything. So, and that goes into like my education, these type of things I started learning as I got older. Like there's a reason why, I wasn't, successful in certain things, because it's a lot of things that mentally were being blocked because I'm still traumatized, because of my siblings. And so as I got older, my resiliency and knowing how I can actually operate and move through life based off things that I have experienced in life, that helps me show my resiliency and actually be who I am. Because, I could have, end up doing something based off my siblings. It probably could have been something I couldn't handle as I got older, and not knowing how to deal with it. So knowing that I was able to, got to seek counseling for myself as I got older, reach out to different family members that I, look up to, and that, I know they're going to be my support system, really all plays a, very vital role. And, just again, like I speak on different family members. I have my aunt, my uncle, again, my mom, my dad, my grandparents, everybody that really that's always has been there, no matter what. They see so much into me that based off my siblings, I didn't really see a lot in myself because I was kind of basing off, oh, I'm doing this, this is happening to me, but also I know that they're gonna still be my support system no matter what, and whatever I do, whatever challenges I face and everything. So just having that resiliency, like I'm very, very big on resiliency. That's something I do with my job. I go through resiliency training and everything. And so knowing that, I have to be, in order for me to really move on in both personal and professional in life, I have to be able to speak on certain things that I have experienced. And that's going to help continue to build my resiliency and really shape me who I am as an individual. And so just like I said, just to continue to add to that, just making sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, and really give myself grace. And that's something that's for anybody, even the audience. So we have to give ourselves grace no matter what we have experienced in life, and that you have to give yourself grace. Because if we able to give other people grace, we gotta kind of turn it around and we gotta give ourselves grace too. So if you're not able to handle a certain situation, allow yourself and give yourself that grace to really work on it and really move forward. And I'm sorry, I missed the second half of that question.
That was just it was your resilience. Siblings influence your resilience and leadership.
In leadership. Okay. So yeah, and then with leadership, again, being a leader, I feel like a leader, in order to be a leader, you have to have come from different experiences, and even currently going through experiences in life. And so I feel like as a leader that I am today, again, my siblings have shaped that, my grandmother, parents, my aunt, my uncles, anything, they all have shaped those type of things in me as being a leader, because based on knowing what I've experienced, what I actually experienced in work-wise, professional things, these type of things help build my, leadership role and my leadership skills, and even how I wanted to, continue to prosper in leadership, because there's always opportunity to continue to grow in your leadership. But in order to really be that, very transparent leadership, you have to be able to share, your baggage as well too, and things that you have experienced in life, and these type of things, because you as a leader, you're going to have people that are going to be looking up to you. So I don't want people to look up to me and they don't understand, they don't realize, they don't see the bad things that I have experienced, and they just see all the good things, because in order to get to the good things, you have to be able to work on those bad things in order to, really prosper into your leadership role. So that's something that, even now, like I'm getting to that space where I'm very comfortable in sharing certain things and talking to people about certain things, because there are times I just feel like, I don't want to share this. Like if I'm having a bad day, or, I know I'm just really going through certain things, I want to share those type of things. And I would just say, in the leadership, I think I shared this with you prior to this. I remember like a while back, I had like an anxiety attack, and that was my first time really having an anxiety attack. And I remember talking to someone about that, and I'm just like, hey, me being in a leadership role, these are the type of things I have to share with people, because people will never know that. But I'm being a leader, I'm out here trying to advocate for people as a leader and everything. So I have to share with them like, hey, I'm also going through things. Having that anxiety attack that I had, I never experienced that a day in my life. And I remember just being not able to sleep, and I'm trying to walk it off. I'm walking around, I'm trying to talk myself out of it. Like, hey, Kirenski, you could do this, you could get out of this, but I had to realize, like, you also a leader, so you got to work, you got to find a way to work around this, look at options, seek, even as a leader, continue to seek more resources. If I feel like I need some extensive counseling therapy and some more, guess what? I'm going to call my therapist. I'm going to call my mentors that I know, or someone that I'm very close with that I could talk to, and really so they can hear me out. And I know I'm not being judged just based off things that I'm experiencing. And so again, that just kind of go back to that being a leader. Like you got, in order to, be a leader, you got to go through things. You got to be able to know how to work around those things so that, hey, the next person that comes to me, I got to be able to share those things with them. And so I can help them out as being a leader as well.
So, in closing, what are some words of wisdom and encouragement you'd like to leave with our audience? Tell them how to connect with you via social media, your website, anything you'd like for them to know.
Okay. My encouragement, I would say for me, encouraging everyone just, really, take heed into your mental space. We're all going through things in life, no matter what, we're all dealing with grief, different things. And there's so much things that goes around grief and everything. And I see so many different things on a daily basis. Just the mental space that, it's so much, it's a trying time that we're going through. And we all have to be able to like work on these things, seek help. And, that's from any community. If you know you're going through some things, seek help in order. And so if you get the help, we can actually all be able to prosper as individual in our everyday lives and everything. Don't be afraid to talk to anybody, reach out to people, build that community. And just, we have to really, and I hear this all the time, we have to uplift each other no matter what. And that's something I want us to really, uplift each other as an audience, as a community. Anytime I see things, I'm always going to reach out to people. If I see certain things, I'm starting to notice that if I feel certain things around people, I'm going to like reach out to them and say, hey, something that you posted, I saw, it's kind of, it was bothering me. I just want to make sure, I want to check in. And we have to check on each other. Again, it's so much that we're seeing every day from the news, just our personal lives. So we have to really check on each other, and not just kind of keep everything bottled up. And that's something that, I want people to understand. Don't hold everything in, because when we hold everything in, we start dealing with so much more things that, guess what, we would actually just lose control and won't actually get that help for. So we have to, really speak on some things and be okay with speaking on things. Never be afraid to like talk to people about certain things. I would say words of advice, just be resiliency. If people don't know what resiliency is, just look it up and really kind of put yourself in that space and knowing how you could work on your resiliency and everything. Because again, we have all experienced some things that even if we want to share it, things that we probably done is unknown to us, but we have to realize that, there's things that in order for us to continue to grow in life, we have experienced some things and we got to heal. And we just got to be in that healing space. No matter, it's not really, look at the whole thing about, being a spiritual thing. It goes beyond the spiritual aspect as well, too. It's not all about, going up to your higher power, but it's also about what you could do here while you're here on earth and getting our resources, connected with people. It's so many different groups that you could join. That would help people out in life and everything. So you never know what another person is going through in life. So always just try to be very positive, be kind, because there's so much things that people are going through and dealing with that we would never know. And of course, now we see these type of things. It's becoming a trend, people being suicidal, acting out and doing certain things. And then there's a reason why, because guess what? We as people, we don't share things. We don't talk to people. We just deal with it. And like I say, go back to the older generation. We just deal with it and just move on. And that's going to be our issue. And that's what we're going to always be facing, those challenges. We keep moving on. We can't keep moving on. We got to target it, work on it, heal from it, and continue to heal from it and move on in life.
So let me just say this to you as
Okay.
I'm getting ready to close here. Can you stick around for a few minutes after I close the
Yes.
show?
Yes.
I want to say, for those of you that are watching on all of our channels, including the YouTube channels, if you have not yet subscribed and enabled all notifications, I would appreciate if you could support us by subscribing and enabling those notifications. So every time we do our show Monday through Friday, you will be able to get the show live, as well as you're able to go back through the channel and you can watch each and every episode that we have recorded with all the great messages from all of our great leaders that are doing that one thing that Kirenski just mentioned, and that is building our communities. So as I say that, I want to say this as well. We have just learned from our next leader, a future leader, that building community, communicating with others, and being your brother's keeper is very, very important. You never know, as things are going on and people are going through things, what you can do to help someone else. Now, we just learned from this leader that not only does it take a lot from the mental perspective in order to continue to do his due diligence in his work, but it's his everyday life. This is something that all of us in all of our communities, especially the communities of Black people, this is where we're going to have to start working together to continuously to build our communities and strengthen them like yesteryear. There's nothing saying that we can't do that. It's just a matter of, do we want to do that? Let's start today if you have not started. Let's start with me. Join me as we build these communities. Join Kirenski in the work that he's doing to continue to uplift the youth, because those children are our future. Thank you all, and please join us tomorrow for a great episode of Final Word Friday. I'm your host, Charles King. This is America in Black and White. I thank you guys for joining us tonight. We'll see you tomorrow night, same time, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Good night.
Thank you.